Despite time-tested collision avoidance regulations, sophisticated navigation systems, and frequent STCW amendments to training requirements, marine accidents continue to occur. Although sporadic, they can come with catastrophic consequences. Marine accidents sometimes result in loss of lives, millions of dollars in damages, environmental pollution, lengthy investigations, tougher regulations, escalating shipping insurance premiums, costly delays, and more. Fortunately, most marine accidents are preventable. The global economy relies on water transportation for cost-effective shipping of over 90% of goods. Consequently, marine accidents have a snowball effect on the economy. Human error continues to be the leading cause of marine accidents. In fact, Safer Seas Digest, a compendium of lessons learned from marine accidents reports issued or adopted by the National Transportation Safety Board, shows some form of human error as probable cause in about 81% of the 141 marine accidents investigated between 2013 and 2017. Marine accident reports from investigation agencies around the world reveal similar percentages of human error-related accidents. The American Bureau of Shipping reviewed 150 accident reports from ATSB, 100 from TSB Canada, and 100 from MAIB for a technical paper on the role of the human element in accident causation and consequence mitigation. It found that human error resulted in 85% of ATSB accidents, 84% of TSB Canada cases, and 82% of MAIB accidents. James E. Hall, former chairman of the NTSB, expanded the definition of human error to include errors in perception, judgment, and decision-making, breakdowns in communication and coordination, distractions and diverted attention, inadequate training, skills and experience, inadequate supervision at the primary and higher management levels, and physical impairment, fatigue, and other environmental stressors. People control every segment of the marine transportation industry. From maritime nations' regulatory and enforcement agencies, shipping companies, equipment manufacturers, and vessel traffic services, all the way to the ship's crew. Hence, human error originating in any of these entities may play a role in marine accidents. For this reason, a last line of defense against accidents must be established at the vessel. In marine collisions, for example, regardless of which segment of the industry the chain of human error starts from, the ultimate causation is almost always one or more violations of navigation rules of the road on the vessel. A prime example occurred in Fedji VTS area, Norway, during the early morning hours of November 8, 2018. The sky was dark with clear visibility. Helgingstad, a Norwegian frigate, entered the Fedji VTS area. Her bridge team notified the VTS operator. The operator logged the frigate, but did not enter it into the traffic monitoring system. As Helgingstad proceeded southbound equipped with operational radars and AIS operating in reception-only mode, her bridge team kept a radio watch on the VHF channel for the area. The bridge team assumed the Sola TS, a well-lit tanker at a nearby oil terminal, was a stationary platform. Sola TS subsequently maneuvered slowly away from the oil terminal. Her pilot notified the VTS operator of the departure, but the operator did not inform other vessels in the traffic area. As Sola TS headed northbound in the fairway, her navigation lights were obscured by some deck lights left on for crew to secure the deck for the passage. The pilot aboard Sola TS saw a southbound vessel approaching, but was unable to identify her without available AIS data. He contacted the VTS operator for information about the approaching vessel, but the VTS operator claimed he had not received any information about the unidentified vessel. Sola TS used a flashing light signal in an attempt to contact the approaching vessel. However, the deck lights on Sola TS reduced the signal's visibility. The VTS operator eventually remembered that Helgingstad had notified him of entry into the traffic area. He immediately informed SOLA TS. Her pilot contacted Helgingstad by VHF radio, but the bridge team aboard Helgingstad, still convinced SOLA TS was a stationary platform near the shore, assumed they were communicating with one of the other 3 northbound vessels. By the time Helgingstad's bridge team realized that SOLA TS was the approaching vessel just ahead, collision was unavoidable. Both vessels took evasive actions, but they collided. Helgingstad sustained extensive damage on her starboard side, and 7 crew members suffered minor injuries. SOLA TS sustained minor damage on the bow. Some spilled marine gas oil had minimal impact on the marine environment. This collision, like almost every other collision case, highlights a host of navigation rules of the road violations. Helgingstad's bridge team failed to maintain a proper lookout as directed by Rule Number 5. SOLA TS was observable by sight and radar display. Further, AIS data and VHF radio communication were not adequately used to monitor vessel traffic in the fairway. Helgingstad was not proceeding at a safe speed, as defined by Rule Number 6, so that she could have stopped within a distance appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and conditions to avoid collision. Both vessels neglected to use radar plot or equivalent systematic observation to obtain early warning of risk of collision, in accordance with Rule 7, Paragraph B. Bridge teams on both vessels were too late in taking positive action to prevent collision, as specified by Rule 8, Paragraph A. Prior to the collision, Helgingstad had SOLA TS on the starboard side, with risk of collision present. Since both vessels were power-driven, Helgingstad violated Rule 15 by crossing ahead of SOLA TS. Helgingstad, according to Rule 16, was the give-way vessel in a crossing situation. Her bridge team failed to take early and substantial action to keep well clear of SOLA TS. SOLA TS, being the stand-on vessel, was directed by Rule 17, Paragraph B, to take such action necessary to avoid collision, when it became apparent that collision could not have been avoided by the action of Helgingstad alone. The deck of SOLA TS should have been secured for the passage prior to leaving the berth. Once she got underway, deck lights and any other lights that impaired the visibility of her navigation lights should have been turned off, as stipulated in Rule 20, Paragraph B. As we've seen, despite the FEDG VTS operators' blatant failure to adequately monitor vessels in the traffic area, this collision could have obviously been prevented if the bridge team on either vessel had followed the navigation rules of the road. So why didn't they? A 2003 Nautical Institute International survey on improving the application of the call regs shows that almost 50% of deck watch officers surveyed believe failure to follow navigation rules of the road is caused by ignorance and/or disregard of these rules. The survey also indicated that ignorance of call regs is widespread and not confined by nationality or experience. These findings are consistent with the results from similar research conducted in the European Union and around the world, as well as probable cause determined in many marine collision investigation reports. Do these results really surprise anyone? Navigation rules of the road work, if applied, but they are not the easiest to understand. Ignorance of these navigation rules almost goes hand in hand with disregard. After all, seafarers can't appropriately apply what they don't fully understand. Seafarers are not lawyers. All the legal verbiage in these rules can be confusing. And how about consistency? A power-driven vessel 50 meters or more in length is required to have 2 mast headlights. Yet, a trawler 50 meters or more in length is required to have only 1 mast headlight. A power-driven vessel less than 50 meters in length is not required to have a second mast headlight, but may opt to do so. Power-driven vessels are required to show sidelights and stern light when underway, even when not making way. Other vessels, such as fishing vessels, show sidelights and sternlight only when making way through the water. Need I give more examples? If some experienced seafarers find these navigation rules difficult to understand and apply, what about the thousands of small boat operators who are only occasionally on the water? The U.S. Coast Guard's annual Recreational Boating Statistics Report shows collision with recreational vessel ranked number 1 in the top 5 primary accident types from 2009 to 2019. Shipping, like other high-risk transportation industries, requires a competent crew for safe operation. A bridge team's understanding and application of these navigation rules of the road are paramount to preventing collision and ensuring the safety of the vessel and crew. Able-bodied seamen or other seafarers serving as ratings, forming part of a navigation watch, should also understand them. After all, the more knowledgeable each member of a bridge team is, the safer the team. Moreover, these navigation rules of the road apply to all vessels, meaning small boat operators should understand and apply them as well. Learning these navigation rules of the road, without a doubt, is the only way to understand them. Technology, in the form of effective e-learning, has proven to be a feasible means of combining multimedia content to create consistent, interactive, scalable, engaging, flexible, and low-cost proficiency training accessible on various electronic devices. Nevertheless, the e-learning solution should be purposefully created to be effective in simplifying all aspects of navigation rules of the road mariners might have difficulty deciphering. In addition, the e-learning solution should motivate mariners to apply lessons learned to avoid collision. It should also use relevant case studies to serve as a somber reminder that accidents can happen anytime, anywhere, and to anyone if measures to prevent them are ignored. Let's see how Navigation Rules of the Road Demystified was created to help improve proficiency in collision avoidance at sea.
Navigation Rules of the Road Demystified was specifically created to be a comprehensive e-learning solution. Sam B. Pearson III, who wrote and produced the content, is a licensed chief mate on Limited Ocean's dynamic positioning operator and has also been a maritime educator and instructional designer for over 20 years. 2 professional voiceover talents were employed to narrate the video portion of the e-learning solution. One reads the navigation regulations verbatim, while the other elaborates as needed.
Rule 6. Safe speed. Every vessel shall at all times proceed at a safe speed so that she can take proper and effective action to avoid collision and be stopped within a distance appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and conditions. In determining a safe speed, the following factors shall be among those taken into account. By all vessels, the state of visibility.
Restricted visibility brings more challenges. Slowing down gives more time to assess any potential risk of collision. Many collisions have occurred due to excessive speed in fog.
The traffic density, including concentration of fishing vessels or any other vessels.
Recreational vessels' congestion can also pose a hazard for deep draft ships traffic. Since smaller vessels usually operate close to the coastline, adjusting course to run a few extra miles offshore can help you stay clear of these vessels.
The maneuverability of the vessel, with special reference to stopping distance and turning ability in the prevailing conditions.
The wheelhouse poster, required by IMO Assembly Resolution 60115 and 33 CFR 164.35, paragraph G, for vessels 1,600 tons and above, contains invaluable maneuvering characteristics and stopping distance for different load conditions.
At night, the presence of background light, such as from shore lights or from backscatter of her own lights.
This problem is ever present when navigating near cities, especially densely populated cities. Also, fog can create backscatter from your own light.
The state of wind, sea, and current, and the proximity of navigational hazards. The draft in relation to the available depth of water.
Shallow water, for practical purposes, considered water depth of about 2.5 times the deepest draft of the vessel, significantly affects the handling characteristics of a vessel. As a vessel speeds through shallow water, the water displaced by her hull is not promptly replaced by surrounding water. Hence, a low-pressure area develops, and the vessel sinks deeper in the water, or squats. In fact, squats can cause unexpected grounding. Other shallow water effects include, but are not limited to, maneuvering difficulties, increased engine load, increased stopping distance, increased turning circle, and vibration. Speed reduction is very effective in minimizing shallow water effects.
The e-learning content is divided into two sections: International Navigation's Rules of the Road, or CAL Regs, and the U.S. Navigation Regulations, or Inland Rules.
A power-driven vessel, when pushing ahead or towing alongside, except in the case of a composite unit, shall exhibit, instead of the light prescribed in Rule 23A1 or 23A2, two masthead lights in a vertical line, side lights, and a stern light.
Under the International Navigation Rules, a power-driven vessel pushing ahead or towing alongside, excluding a composite unit, does not show a towing light on the stern, only a stern light. Under the Inland Navigation Rules, a power-driven vessel pushing ahead or towing alongside, excluding a composite unit, will show two towing lights and no stern light.
Any part of a rule likely to result in a potentially dangerous situation is addressed using the appropriate reference to clarify the implication. An example is Rule 1, paragraph C, regarding ships of war and vessels proceeding under convoy.
Nothing in these rules shall interfere with the operation of any special rules made by the government of any state with respect to additional station or signal lights, shapes, or whistle signals for ships of war and vessels proceeding under convoy, or with respect to additional station or signal lights or shapes for fishing vessels engaged in fishing as a fleet. These additional station or signal lights, shapes, or whistle signals shall, so far as possible, be such that they cannot be mistaken for any light, shape, or signal authorized elsewhere under these rules.
Civilian mariners and vessel operators must fully understand the implications of this paragraph when operating in the vicinity of warships and vessels proceeding under convoy. According to 32 CFR Section 706.1, all ships are warned that when U.S. naval vessels are met in international waters, certain navigational lights and sound signaling appliances of some naval vessels may vary from the requirements of the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea, 1972, as to number, position, range, or arc of visibility of lights, as well as to the disposition and characteristics of sound signaling appliances. Those differences are necessitated by reason of the special construction or purpose of the naval ships. An example is the aircraft carrier, where the two masthead lights are considerably displaced from the center or keel line of the vessel when viewed from ahead. Certain other naval vessels cannot comply with the horizontal separation requirements for masthead lights, and the two masthead lights on even large naval vessels will thus appear to be crowded together when viewed from a distance. Naval vessels may also have unorthodox navigational light arrangements or characteristics when seen either underway or at anchor. Naval vessels may also be expected to display certain other lights. These lights include, but are not limited to, different colored rotating beacons, different colored fixed and rotary wing aircraft landing signal lights, red aircraft warning lights, or red or blue contour approach lights on replenishment-type ships. These lights may be shown in combination with the navigational lights. During peacetime naval maneuvers, naval ships, alone or in company, may also dispense with showing any lights, though efforts will be made to display lights on the approach of shipping.
Critical information from other publications required to supplement these navigation rules is discussed.
Rule 5. Lookout. Every vessel shall at all times maintain a proper lookout by sight and hearing, as well as by all available means appropriate in the prevailing circumstances and conditions, so as to make a full appraisal of the situation and of the risk of collision.
A proper lookout is far more than just looking out. It's about looking, listening, and using every available means to stay situationally aware of the surroundings. Additionally, acting promptly in accordance with these navigation rules to avert any potential accident when risk of collision is determined to exist. The 2010 Manila Amendments to the Seafarers Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping (STCW) Code explicitly describe duties required for a proper lookout in Part 4-1, Principles to be Observed in Keeping a Navigational Watch. A proper lookout shall be maintained at all times in compliance with Rule 5 of the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea, 1972, as amended, and shall serve the purpose of maintaining a continuous state of vigilance by sight and hearing, as well as by all other available means, with regard to any significant change in the operating environment, fully appraising the situation and risk of collision, stranding, and other dangers to navigation, and detecting ships or aircraft in distress, shipwrecked persons, wrecks, debris, and other hazards to safe navigation. The lookout must be able to give full attention to keeping a proper lookout, and no other duty shall be undertaken or assigned which could interfere with this task. The duties of the lookout and helmsperson are separate, and the helmsperson shall not be considered to be the lookout while steering, except in small vessels where an unobstructed all-around view is provided at the steering position and there is no impairment of night vision or other impediment to the keeping of a proper lookout. The officer in charge of the navigational watch may be the sole lookout in daylight, provided that, on each such occasion, the situation has been carefully assessed and it has been established without doubt that it is safe to do so. Full account has been taken of all relevant factors, including, but not limited to, state of weather, visibility, traffic density, proximity of dangers to navigation, and the attention necessary when navigating in or near traffic separation schemes, and assistance is immediately available to be summoned to the bridge when any change in the situation so requires.
Practice questions are provided after each roll to reinforce content covered. Detailed feedback is given for each answer choice. Let's take a look at a multiple choice question from Rule 19. In restricted visibility, a vessel which detects by radar alone the presence of another vessel shall determine if a close quarters situation is developing or risk of collision exists. If so, she shall. If we select A, we can see that, according to Rule 34, paragraph D, vessels have to be in sight of one another to sound the signal to indicate doubt. What about B? Speed change is also an option. Rule 19, paragraph E, mentions speed reduction to avoid a close quarters situation with another vessel. The correct answer is C. According to Rule 19, paragraph D2, an alteration of course towards a vessel, a beam or abaft the beam, so far as possible, shall be avoided. Some rules, such as vessel lighting and day shapes, are best reinforced using drag-and-drop interaction. For these questions, the next button becomes available when the correct answer is selected. Let's take a look at a drag-and-drop question from Rule 26. Drag and drop the correct day shape in position for a vessel engaged in fishing other than trawling and making way. If we select B, we can see that this day shape is for a vessel not under command, Rule 27A1. If we make another selection, it replaces the previous. For this question, the correct answer is C. Furthermore, any helpful tip is given in the feedback caption. For example, two cones with apexes together in a vertical line is also used for vessels engaged in trawling, according to Rule 26, paragraph B1. Terms likely to be confused with one another are differentiated. Seaplanes and wing and ground WIG crafts are a good example. Although the 2001 amendments to call regs, which went into effect in 2003, introduced WIG craft into the navigation rules, some seafarers have never seen an actual WIG craft. Many online videos show a variety of WIG crafts in action, but these videos do not cover the fundamental differences between these crafts and seaplanes. Understanding these differences can help seafarers better understand associated navigation rules.
The term wing and ground, WIG craft, means a multimodal craft which, in its main operational mode, flies in close proximity to the surface by utilizing surface effect action.
From a distance, a wing and ground craft may be mistaken for a seaplane. However, there are distinct differences. A seaplane is simply an airplane built or modified to taxi, take off, and land on water. Airplanes are designed to fly at high altitudes, so they have relatively long wings to help provide greater lift. Wing and ground crafts, on the other hand, are designed to operate in ground effect, in other words, low altitudes. Their wings are comparably shorter than those on a similar-sized airplane, and they have high horizontal tails to provide stability.
The importance of vessel lighting to prevent collision is highlighted.
Lights and shapes. Rule 20. Application. Rules in this part shall be complied with in all weathers.
During periods of darkness and restricted visibility at sea, visual cues are greatly diminished. Hence, it is not only critical to be able to see other vessels and be seen by them, we need to instantly communicate vital information: vessel size, type, position, orientation, and navigation status. In this part of the navigation rules, we will be discussing the intricate system of lighting based on placement, color, characteristics, arc of visibility, and intensity, designed to provide the information needed to help prevent collision. We will also discuss required day shapes.
Lighting requirements are illustrated with helpful tips.
Lights and shapes. Rule 23. Power-driven vessels underway.
The power-driven vessel could be just drifting, not at anchor, not docked or tied to a fixed structure.
A power-driven vessel underway shall exhibit a masthead light forward, a second masthead light abaft of and higher than the forward one, except that a vessel of less than 50 meters in length shall not be obliged to exhibit such light, but may do so.
This is important to note. A vessel less than 50 meters may opt to carry a second masthead light.
Side lights and a stern light. An air cushion vessel, when operating in the non-displacement mode, shall, in addition to lights prescribed in paragraph A of this rule, exhibit an all-round flashing yellow light.
Non-displacement mode, according to the Code of Federal Regulations, means a mode of operation in which the vessel is supported by hydrodynamic forces rather than displacement of its weight in the water.
Potentially confusing lighting requirements are clarified using relevant illustrations.
A power-driven vessel to which paragraphs A or C of this rule applies shall also comply with Rule 23A1 and 23A2, Section 83.23A1 or 2.
This paragraph attempts to clarify masthead light requirements for vessels 50 meters or more engaged in pushing ahead, towing astern, or alongside. In such a case, if masthead lights for towing or pushing are carried forward in a vertical line, an after masthead light is required. This after masthead light is optional for towing vessels less than 50 meters. Similarly, if masthead lights for towing or pushing are carried aft in a vertical line, then a forward masthead light is required.
Definitions of required lights are described in detail.
Flashing light means a light flashing at regular intervals at a frequency of 120 flashes or more per minute.
Based on this paragraph, no specific color is given for a flashing light. However, it could be blue when used on a law enforcement vessel engaged in direct law enforcement or public safety activities. Also, no arc of visibility is specified.
Special flashing light means a yellow light flashing at regular intervals at a frequency of 50 to 70 flashes per minute, placed as far forward and as nearly as practicable on the fore and aft center line of the tow, and showing an unbroken light over an arc of the horizon of not less than 180 degrees, nor more than 225 degrees, and so fixed as to show the light from right ahead to a beam, and no more than 22.5 degrees abaft the beam on either side of the vessel.
Special flashing light is used only in inland rules. The best way to remember the difference between flashing light and special flashing light is to consider one of the literal definitions of special, different from what is considered normal or usual. 1. A flashing light can be any color. A special flashing light is limited to only one color, yellow. 2. No arc of visibility is specified for a flashing light. A special flashing light is limited to an arc of visibility of not less than 180 degrees or more than 225 degrees. 3. A flashing light flashes at a frequency of 120 flashes or more per minute. A special flashing light is slower, flashing at a frequency of 50 to 70 flashes per minute. 4. A flashing light can be placed anywhere specified by these rules. A special flashing light has to be placed as far forward and as near as practicable on the fore and aft center line of the tow.
Appropriate sound signals are used to supplement explanation of these rules.
Rule 35. Sound signals in restricted visibility. Section 83.35. In or near an area of restricted visibility, Whether by day or night, the signals prescribed in this rule shall be used as follows. A power-driven vessel making way through the water shall sound at intervals of not more than 2 minutes, one prolonged blast. A power-driven vessel underway but stopped and making no way through the water shall sound at intervals of not more than 2 minutes, 2 prolonged blasts in succession, with an interval of about 2 seconds between them.
To summarize, power-driven vessel making way, 1 prolonged whistle blast, not more than 2 minutes apart. Power-driven vessel stopped and not making way, 2 prolonged whistle blasts, not more than 2 minutes apart. So, if stopped, sound second blast.
Additional information is provided to complement some specific requirements, as in the case of the navigation rules book.
The operator of each self-propelled vessel 12 meters or more in length shall carry on board and maintain for ready reference a copy of these rules.
A copy of these rules refers to a hard copy of the Navigation Rules and Regulations Handbook. Free, printer-friendly electronic copy of the Navigation Rules and Regulations Handbook can be downloaded from the U.S. Coast Guard Navigation Center website. Printed copies of this publication can be purchased from nautical supply stores or conveniently ordered online. Updates to these navigation rules of the road are published in the Notices to Mariners. The Navigation Rules and Regulations Handbook has a record of changes table in the front of the book to keep track of updates. NAVIC 01-16, Enclosure 1, Paragraph F, provides a list of publications that may be maintained in electronic format and requirements for doing so. The Navigation Rules and Regulations Handbook is not on this list.
Potentially dangerous situations are fully illustrated for relatability. For example, if seafarers understand how dangerous mine clearance operation is, they will most likely remember why approaching within 1,000 meters of a vessel engaged in mine clearance is dangerous.
A vessel engaged in mine clearance operation shall, in addition to the lights prescribed for a power-driven vessel in Rule 23, or to the lights or shape prescribed for a vessel at anchor in Rule 30 as appropriate, exhibit 3 all-round green lights or 3 balls. One of these lights or shapes shall be exhibited near the foremast head and one at each end of the foreyard.
Memory tip: 3 green mice. Substitute mice with mine. 3 green mine sweeper.
These lights or shapes indicate that it is dangerous for another vessel to approach within 1,000 meters of the mine clearance vessel.
In order to fully appreciate the danger associated with approaching within 1,000 meters of vessels engaged in mine clearance operation, it is important to understand the mine clearance process. Sea mine is a self-contained explosive weapon deployed in water to blow up vessels when triggered. Prior to World War II, the contact mine was widely used. Contact mine consists of triggering horns protruding from a buoyant case loaded with explosives. The case is usually moored to a weight on the water bottom, so the mine suspends at a desired depth below the water surface. When a passing ship or submarine hits one of these triggering horns, the mine detonates. Minesweepers are ships used to disable or detonate sea mines in order to create a safe path for vessel traffic through a minefield. Mine clearance operation generally consists of 2 minesweepers towing a submerged bight of steel sweep wire with cutting gears. A device called a water kite is attached to each end of the bight to keep the entire length of the bight at the desired sweep depth. This practice helps to ensure all moored mines in the sweep path are snagged. If the mine's mooring cable or chain gets cut, the mine floats to the water surface where it is destroyed by gunfire. If the mine's mooring cable or chain doesn't get cut, the mine is dragged along with its mooring cable or chain and anchor. In some instances, the sweep wire may hit one of the mine's triggering horns and detonate the mine underwater. Notes: a single minesweeper can also engage in mine clearance operation. The general concept is somewhat similar to using 2 minesweepers.
If any term used in these navigation rules has not been defined, it is discussed prior to beginning of the associated navigation rule.
Rule 9. Narrow channels.
The 1972 Convention of the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea does not explicitly define narrow channel or fairway. However, according to oxforddictionaries.com, one of the definitions of channel is a navigable passage in a stretch of water otherwise unsafe for vessels, and 33 CFR 166.105 defines fairway as a lane or corridor in which no artificial island or fixed structure, whether temporary or permanent, will be permitted. So, a narrow channel or fairway is a restricted waterway. Moving on.
A vessel proceeding along the course of a narrow channel or fairway shall keep as near to the outer limit of the channel or fairway which lies on her starboard side as is safe and practicable.
Buoys may mark the outer limits of channels and fairways. The watch officer or boat operator determines how close to the outer limit of the channel or fairway is safe and practicable. Several safety factors will have to be considered. For example, vessel traffic density, ship-to-ship interaction, bank cushion, and suction. Current speed can vary between 1 to well over 3 miles per hour. Possible silt buildup on the inside of river bends, and much more.
Throughout the e-learning, definitions of terms are clarified as needed.
For the purposes of this rule, the windward side shall be deemed to be the side opposite to that on which the mainsail is carried, or in the case of a square-rigged vessel, the side opposite to that on which the largest fore and aft sail is carried.
Two operative words used in this rule are windward, upwind or the side facing the wind, and leeward, downwind or the side sheltered from the wind. A word not mentioned in this rule but worth knowing is tack. Sailboaters may use tack to describe the windward side. For example, a sailboat on a port tack has the wind coming from her port side.
Safety tips are provided throughout this e-learning content.
Rule 7. Risk of collision. Every vessel shall use all available means appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and conditions to determine if risk of collision exists. If there is any doubt, such risk shall be deemed to exist.
The VHF radio can be particularly handy to determine if risk of collision exists. Courteous communication with other vessels is useful in determining their intentions. Many collisions have occurred because vessel operators failed to communicate their intention. When calling, if you cannot obtain the vessel's name, use descriptions that will make it easy for the vessel to know you are calling her. For example, location relative to a known structure or position. The calling the vessel on my port side may not work.
Rule 19. Conduct of vessels in restricted visibility. This rule applies to vessels not in sight of one another when navigating in or near an area of restricted visibility.
An extremely important part of this paragraph is to keep in mind that Rule 19 also applies when navigating near an area of restricted visibility. For example, one vessel could be completely obscured by fog, while the other vessel may be in clear visibility.
Rule 36. Signals to attract attention. If necessary to attract the attention of another vessel, any vessel may make light or sound signals that cannot be mistaken for any signal authorized elsewhere in these rules, or may direct the beam of her searchlight in the direction of the danger, in such a way as not to embarrass any vessel.
One of the definitions of embarrass, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is to impair the activity of. In other words, when directing a searchlight's beam in the direction of danger, avoid shining the light on the other vessel. Doing so could impair the night vision of the other vessel's operator.
Case studies based on official accident investigation reports are illustrated to demonstrate how failure to apply these navigation rules has resulted in accidents. Lessons learned from case studies are emphasized.
Case in history. Unmanned pilot house. On October 25, 1978, the Don J. Miller II, a geographical survey research vessel, was proceeding southbound in Admiralty Inlet, Washington, when the Welcome, a fishing vessel, commenced crossing close ahead from starboard to port. The master on the Miller slowed his vessel to avoid getting too close to the Welcome. When the Welcome was clearly on the port side and moving away, the master on the Miller increased speed to overtake the Welcome. The master subsequently left the pilot house unattended. The steering control was on autopilot. During the master's absence from the pilot house, the Welcome changed course to cross the Miller's bow, and the vessels collided. There were no reported injuries, but the Welcome sank after the collision. The National Transportation Safety Board determined that the probable cause of this accident was the Miller's master leaving the control of his vessel unattended, while the Miller was still the burdened vessel in an overtaking situation. Contributing to the accident were the failure of the Welcome to ascertain the whereabouts of the Miller before changing course, and the failure of both the Miller and the Welcome to maintain proper lookouts. This case serves as an important reminder of why this paragraph requires a vessel operator to carefully check the effectiveness of action to avoid collision until the other vessel is finally passed and clear. Of course, the vessel operator has to be physically present in the pilot house, as required by STCW Code and 33 CFR Section 164.11. However, even if a vessel operator is physically present in the pilot house, but he or she is distracted by other duties not relating to the safe navigation of the vessel, the situation can be as dangerous as leaving the pilot house unattended.
Distress signals referenced in Rule 37 and described in Annex 4 are expounded.
A signal sent by radio telephony consisting of the spoken word Mayday.
47 CFR Section 80.1123, Paragraph A, requires all ships at sea to maintain a continuous radio watch. Mayday calls take precedence over all other radio communications and are given prompt attention. It is important to follow the recommended format or checklist for Mayday calls to ensure all vital information is transmitted. For example,
Vessel calling Coast Guard, this is Coast Guard on 16, over.
Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Ocean Hopper 2, Ocean Hopper 2, Ocean Hopper 2, Charlie Yankee Zulu 65. Mayday, Ocean Hopper 2. Position, north 23 degrees 07.2 minutes, west 072 degrees 10.1 minutes. Engine room explosion. Need medical assistance and rescue. 402 persons on board. 4 persons third-degree burn. Ocean Hopper 2 is 186 meters passenger vessel, White Holland accommodation. Over.
Some seafarers may not own a computer or have access to one. Therefore, Navigation Rules of the Road Demystified was created as a responsive training to automatically conform to the resolution of digital devices like smartphones and tablets. Hence, hand gesture navigation was enabled in this e-learning content for these devices. Additionally, the content is downloadable for offline access. Obviously, all features of this e-learning solution cannot be covered in this presentation, but I hope you now have a general idea of how the content was created.
In conclusion, Navigation Rules of the Road competency is a win-win for all stakeholders. It will help prevent not only collision, but also other maritime accidents, elision, and groundings, for example. An effective e-learning solution makes proficiency with these rules possible for all seafarers. As such, stakeholders should actively ensure that bridge teams and vessel operators have access to this valuable resource.